I would say I am operating at about 40% of my capacity. I do not worry about this, because I appreciate that there is an upward curve through the natural course of a spiritually enlivened man's life. An attainment curve that sees him come into his power around about the age of 63. The 10th 7-year cycle, a time of inward ascendancy, where the 6+ decades of life have reaped a great harvest, a life of exploration and discovery, a life of suffering, feeling, dissolution, creation and cultivation, a life of dignity and purpose. So it is at this time, at 63, that one may consider oneself rightly a man of worth. As the magical winter approaches, where all illusory forms begin to dissolve, and the genuine and the eternal emerge, a time of inward ascendancy prepares the vessel for true selfhood, pure being, and the glorious homeward voyage. Even so, some may linger and play, perhaps even for a further decade or two, and that is the prerogative of every luminous soul. Now, to the present moment. In normal life, where we equate normality with the mainstream culture of empire, if one was raised in a normal household with normal folks, attending normal school and normal work, then it would take at least 30 years from the moment of initial awakening before one may claim any level of spiritual adeptness. So if you began walking your spiritual path at 15, you'd be 45 before you might look upon yourself as mature. If you started at 25, you'd be 55. If you began at 55, you'd be 85, and so on. It takes a very long time, and it is very hard work. Most people never do it. Even among spiritual aspirants, they often resign their commission and just live a life that appears spiritual, even to themselves, but is not. And you may say, well, what does it mean to begin walking one's spiritual path? Is the genesis of this impulse in our youthful fascination with the supernatural? With ghosts, UFOs, wizards, witches, magic, ESP, staring up at the stars and wondering just what are they? What do they mean? Where do we come from? Is this the seed of the path? Well, we could be very kind and say, yes, in a way. Sure, that's a good place to begin. But it's not walking the path. To walk the path is to devote oneself to total personal transformation. Only through transformation can we know reality. Purer and purer being is needed for deeper and deeper comprehension. So we must go to the darkest caverns and face absolute immolation, purification, to walk into the inferno that will annihilate all identity, all beliefs, all concepts, to reduce oneself to ashes. To rise from those ashes as the phoenix. Regeneration from apparent nothingness. So it is purity not in the sense of chasteness, wholesomeness, to live like a monk or a nun, to refrain from the primal impulses. Not those things. Not to run from them or suppress them, but rather to harness them, to master oneself as a heavenly animal, to transcend the incarceration of the flesh through owning it, to overcome the darkness by experientially invoking it within oneself, then transmuting it to fire, possessing oneself in full concord with spirit, to recognize that, to know, we must die. Perhaps then, rather unsurprisingly, most people have little interest in this procedure. In fact, they evade it at every opportunity. No appetite for transformation. They seek escape, comfort, diversion. Okay. Nobody else's business, that, is it? People can do whatever they wish for themselves. Yet we observe that many of these same people will claim great adeptness, great maturity in their spiritual development. They equate their many years of a passing interest in metaphysical matters with deep transformative work. They sometimes put themselves forward as teachers of timeless and profound wisdom. They meditate, do yoga, take plant medicine now and again, read many books, wear spiritual clothes, watch documentaries, adorn themselves with magical items, and communicate in a certain New Age vernacular. And all of these things are in themselves totally neutral. And indeed, the men and women of deep wisdom that I know, they also like to meditate and do some yoga, learn from the plants, read, wear loose-fitting earth-coloured clothes, watch documentaries, wear beautiful silver and amber and turquoise on their bodies. And they too often use a particular kind of language. Yes. But there is one massive difference. One gigantic, bone-splitting distinction. And it is this. The first group of people feel that by doing their daily practices and observing various ritual forms, they are living spiritually. The second group of people do not. The second group see that ritual practice, body forms, objects, mantras, modalities, and ceremonial observances are but a minuscule, nominal, Lilliputian, slender, trifling part of any serious spiritual life. Whereas for the first group of New Age folks, the alternative escapists, the positivity junkies, it is really all of it. Their spirituality is nothing more than a kind of selfish sedation. That is what they are honestly maintaining, and very little else. And that first group, the New Age people, composes 99% of the spiritual community around the world. Newcomers and old-timers alike. Most people enter into spirituality as a lifestyle choice. These are the lunatics and vagrants that our old friends George Gurdjieff, Peter Ouspensky, and Maurice Nicole warned us not to waste our time with. People pretending to live spiritually, even to themselves, but who really are just adopting a fashion, going through the motions, however diligently, however long or short. No inferno, no phoenix, no dark cavern, no harnessing, no cultivation, no transformation. So it is with each passing year, I feel more and more, through meeting thousands of people across the world, that the true spiritual impulse, embodied as a daily transmutational method, is incredibly rare. As a friend sometimes says to me, admittedly when in one of her more playfully contemptuous moods, people choose falsehood because it is easier. And she is right. And are we to... Hello, B. Came right on my hand then. So in saying these things, are we to worry about judgment, discrimination, prejudice and all that baloney? No, because no one at any point here is needing to judge the value of someone's soul. Even if such a thing were possible, which I doubt, barely being able to gauge one's own soul progress, we don't need to appraise the blue book value of someone's soul. No, sir. We are merely observing demonstrated behaviour. We ignore the words. We focus only on action. Being. The established evolutionary path of one person, how they have changed, how they have grown, matured, deepened, how they have attained equilibrium in their moment-by-moment being, and how they have attained alignment in their home, work, and fellowship. These things can be judged very simply, because they are impossible to conceal. Very visible and prominent in a person's life. Only takes a few hours, maybe a few days, or at longest a few weeks to fairly establish the actuality of where someone is at, how they choose to live, how they evolve, or how they stay the same. It's very straightforward, it speaks for itself. It's right there in front of us. Total quality judgment necessary. Easy. A conscious act of astute discrimination. Essential to the spiritual human. A crystal clear lens through which we may magnify all that is good and bad, and then make a decision. And we ought to use this magnificent instrumentation on ourselves 1,000 times more than we ever turn it toward anyone else. The more we hone the seeing of our own internal state, the more we can comprehend what is outside, what is in the hearts of others. Not the value of anyone's soul, forget that. You can't do it anyway, that's God's business. But rather we are seeking to discern the authenticity of someone's actions. We want to know who is doing it for real. Who has learned that in transforming oneself in devotion to spirit, that the secrets of the world are revealed one by one. In such a person, the wisdom is in their footsteps, not words.